Welcome to the second in a series of screencasts on secondary resources. This particular screencast will cover legal dictionaries and legal thesauri. Up next in screencast 3, we'll cover legal encyclopedias. There are many different types of dictionaries. There are free ones online. There are ones that you have to buy and print but that are freely available in the law library. And there are subscription-based ones, such as ones available on Lexis and Westlaw. There are particular types of publications like Bieber's and words and phrases that are considered to be dictionaries that attorneys, that practitioners, scholars use all the time. And especially for those of you who are on a journal, you will end up using them a lot as well. So let's go forward. For example of a free resource, this dictionary on FindLaw's dictionary.findlaw.com, it gives you free access to over 8,000 definitions of legal terms. If you type in, for example, the term breach of contract in the search bar at the top of the page, it would actually bump you to the generalized term breach, and it'll give you iterations of the types of breach that might be out there that one could incur. Breach of duty, trust, warranty. Under breach of warranty at the bottom of the page, it'll give you a definition: failure without excuse or justification to fulfill one's obligations and so forth. And it'll give you a cross-reference. It'll say compare to repudiation. As you can see, that term is hot-linked. It's in blue and bold. If you clicked on that term, repudiation, it actually bump you to another place in the dictionary on findlaw.com where it defines repudiation. That's what a cross-reference is it's saying it's a term within the same resource. Check this term within the same resource we're using here. You don't have to go outside of it. Remember when we talked about cross-references in the first class of definitions? We're referring to it again. Compare a cross-reference to say you're looking in a print version of an annotated statute. You look up the statute, you look at the annotations, it'll give you a few cases related to that statute. In order to find the cases, you have to leave the annotated statutes and walk over to a separate set of books that give you cases. They are referring you outside of that resource to cases, to a different type of resource, versus a cross-references where they're keeping you inside, in-house, to find that term within the same database or book that you're dealing with. Know that term cross-reference. So regardless, it's giving you more information, right? A cross-reference is more information about whatever you're looking at. If you scroll down in that same definition of breach, it'll give you the source where they're pulling the information from. They're not just making it up, they're pulling it from a particular dictionary. In this case, they're not using Black's, they're using Merriam-Webster's Dictionary of Law, 1996 edition. It's old. This is a perfect example of realizing that you need to check either the scope note of the database you're in, or you need to check the bottom of the page when they updated the resource and whether you need to update the information and what resource they're pulling from. So know what resource you're using and whether you need to update it. It's the second point that I really want you to remember out of this screencast. Let's move on from a free resource like the one on FindLaw to a standard or go-to dictionary that's commonly used, like Black's Law Dictionary. The latest available is 10th edition. If you look inside Black's Law Dictionary, it's like a lot of other dictionaries. It gives you additional information. A legal dictionary will give you different types of additional information. Here, just like other dictionaries, they'll give you a particular term that you want to look up, wrongful discharge. They'll give you the date on which historically that they've been able to determine it first originated. They give you a short definition or multiple definitions. In this case, they say a discharge for reasons that are illegal or that violate public policy. And then they give you additional gravy, additional information. In this case, topic and key numbers that will link you to cases that further discuss, explain, define the term wrongful discharge. If you look under civil rights, key number 1122, labor and employment, key number 758, they'll give you more cases to look for. We'll talk more about topic and key numbers later, but it's more information. That's what they're saying. If you decide to look up Black's Law Dictionary on Westlaw, you can certainly do that. It's a subscription-based resource. They've database-sized it. If you just type in the general term dictionary at the top search box on your homepage on Westlaw Next, a word wheel will pop up and they'll actually give you suggestions. Are you looking for this? They'll give you different types of dictionary, the top of which topmost listed Black's Law Dictionary. And then other ones that are really incredibly useful, like Dictionary of Occupational Titles, that you may not have ever really thought of. So the word wheel can be of tremendous use. A third point that I want you to remember out of this screencast is that you have to be careful about the word wheel. It can be very useful, but you also have to be aware that it can start suggesting and encouraging you to go down a path that you may not be well informed enough to determine that that's the wrong path that you actually don't want to pursue. We'll show you in a little bit an example of words and phrases. We used to not have the multi-volume set or database, commonly referred to as words and phrases. They used to have something called Rise of American Law Words and Phrases. That was not at all like the multi-volume set of words and phrases that we practitioners and scholars and law librarians and people on journals commonly use. Something different. So if you started using it and you weren't informed enough to realize that it wasn't actually what you wanted, you wouldn't find definitions that would otherwise appear, and it would be a lost search. And you'd say that you consulted it when you really didn't. So be aware that the word wheel, you have to be thoughtful of using it. Let's say you chose Black's Law Dictionary. In this case, great, I didn't have to type in the whole 3 words Black's Law Dictionary. Choose that, Black's Law Dictionary, database sizes it, type in a phrase that you want to research, wrongful discharge. The phrase also appears as an advanced search up here in quotes because you're searching that exact phrase. And they'll give you 4 selections that they thought might be useful. Wrongful discharge, the simple term discharge, wrongful termination action, wrongful discharge action. Let's say we chose number 4, just that simple term. It'd give you the general concept of discharge and different iterations. Constructive discharge, retaliatory, and wrongful discharge, which was actually what we were pursuing. It's the same exact information that appeared in print. The date which it originated, a basic definition, topic and key numbers that would help you further define and flesh out and understand that concept. We will discuss topic and key numbers more later. They also have dictionaries on Lexis Advance that are really useful. They actually give you sometimes more, or suggest in their word wheel more dictionaries that might be useful. One way of searching dictionaries on Lexis Advance is from their homepage. They now have a generalized search bar. You can start typing in the general word dictionary to describe the resource you want to search, and it will give you many different types of dictionaries that they offer. A basic general one that's like Black's, very well respected, is Ballantyne's Law Dictionary. They don't offer Black's. They offer Ballantyne's on Lexis Advance. They offer other really great ones, Attorney's Dictionary of Medicine, Patent Claims, the Law Dictionary, IP Law Dictionary, and so forth. So that's one way of pulling up things, and you can choose whatever resource you want and select it as a source to search. You can also decide to search from this particular Browse tab above the, on the left-hand side above this general search bar, clicking on the Browse tab, and then typing in dictionary under search for a source. Let's say you chose under the dictionaries that they start to suggest. If you decide to search the general results dictionary, it'll give you Attorney's Dictionary of Patent Claims. One of the dictionaries that it suggests for you again was Ballantyne's Law Dictionary. If you decided to add that source as a search filter, clicking on add that source as a search filter, it adds it up here as a filter, one place to search, and then you can type in whatever term that you want defined. In this case, let's say termination of employment. Let's say you decided to go ahead and search Ballantyne's Law Dictionary for termination of employment. Here's what pulls up. The term termination of employment, a termination of the relationship between employer and employee, and the way they give you definitions is that they give you the authority that they consulted. In this case, they consulted an ALR annotation, and they consulted this particular case. Moving on from basic general dictionaries on Lexis, Westlaw, and print, and free ones, there are very specialized types of dictionaries. For example, Bieber's dictionary. It's no longer, from what I can see, available on Lexis, which it used to be available on. Lexis Advance used to have it. Now it's just available in print. It's in print at the reference desk and also on the upper floor. When you start finding secondary sources in law review articles that you are researching, let's say if you are on one of the journals or if you are writing your writing requirements, you may have no idea what the citation that they're giving you means. And you're trying to do your research and confirm things, but you just don't know where to go next. And Blue Book isn't providing the help because the abbreviations they're giving you make no mention of the ones that you need. Beavers is a great resource to consult. The Dictionary of Legal Abbreviations. There is a forward dictionary that gives you abbreviations and tell you what the abbreviations stand for. Say you run into one that says Rep and Ops ATTY GENIND, you realize it stands for Indiana Attorney General Reports. They also have a reverse dictionary. Let's say you have a particular title and you have no idea how to abbreviate it in some sort of standardized form. Let's say you want to cite to the third decennial edition of the American Digest by West. And you look it up in the reverse dictionary and you realize that they give you a standardized abbreviation. Beavers is a great resource. It's another source of standardized abbreviation, especially if Blue Book isn't giving you any help. This resource is used by librarians, scholars, those on one of the journals, and so forth, okay, and it's used by practitioners as well. Why and when would you abbreviate terms? I've kind of given you a couple of examples, but other examples are you might need to in a parenthetical. Sometimes it might be a preference in an author. If you're working on a journal, then an author wants to abbreviate it in a certain way. Sometimes abbreviations are done in white papers. You're looking for a consistent way of citing, or in academic writing in general. Also, you might need to because old cases and old texts may need to be abbreviated, and Blue Book just doesn't give you any leads. Abbreviations to old reporters of old cases, you can totally find them in Beavers. It's pretty great. So moving on to legal thesauri. Burton's is a great example. It's harder to get them in your databases generally because Westlaw Next and Lexis Advance give you suggested other terms for your search. If you start searching, they don't have a separate database for legal thesauri. I find separate databases or a separate book that you can consult is really useful, especially, for example, if you want to explain terms to pro se patrons or your clients, right? Definitions. How else might you refer to that definition? Let's say that you have to search for ways of talking about a particular type of, say, a weapon or something like that, like a particular type of gun, and you want to think of ways of describing it because you want to look for statutes that prohibit certain types of guns, but they do it in different ways across different states. A legal thesaurus might actually help you in looking for terms that describe the same thing in different ways. If you're trying to think of ways to paraphrase a quote from other scholarly sources pertaining to the topic you're writing on as well. Thesauri can be incredibly helpful in all of those cases. Remember those different cases in which thesauri can be helpful. Okay, in this case, you look up at will employment. They'll give you different types of terms for that, right? At the will of the employer, employment at will, freedom to discharge, without grounds, without reasons, freedom to fire. Associated concept, just cause employees, morally wrong reasons. So it's actually really helpful. There are terms that I wouldn't necessarily think of when I was thinking of at-will employment because I believe that's how this state defines it. There might be ways that other states define it, and so this thesaurus can be incredibly useful. Let's move on to the publication that I've mentioned a few times called Words and Phrases. It's like a dictionary, but the difference is that the definition is coming from a court, how the judge defined it in a particular opinion. You can figure out why a court keeps using a term and what the case was that used it. You can use it at the federal level or at the state level. It's a multi-volume set that runs from A to Z and will give you a particular definition if it was defined in a particular court at the federal as well as the state level. Bigger states have their own multi-volume words and phrases set. They also have sometimes a single volume, like ours. Their words and phrases is associated with their digests in print. Okay. More about digests in a separate recording. Another point that I want to make sure to emphasize, let's say you take the idea of water rights, depending on whether I'm looking for federal courts and I go to words and phrases and I see that it hasn't been defined by this jurisdiction, but let's say you want to see whether it was defined by a particular state, note it there as well to see if any state court had actually defined it. They're not general definitions, but how the court is defining them and using them. This is really key, as the court might have elements attached to it they're using from the case and not from any definition in blacks. Okay, I want you to kind of get that idea. So, words and phrases. It's available in print. It's available in Westlaw Next. It's not on Lexis Advance. You can use in Westlaw Next and type in words and phrases, or just put in operator WP and then type in what you want to define in parentheses at the top search box. It's like an abbreviated way of just cutting to the chase and tell it that you want it to operate within this database and that you want it to define this term. You want it to search for definitions of this term. So if you type words and in the search bar in Westlaw Next, it will give you the word wheel and it will suggest whether you are looking for this. It suggests rise of American law, dictionaries and words and phrases. That was the only option for a while, and it would lead people down the wrong path. Now it gives you two options. You would just want to choose this second option, words and phrases, not rise of American law. Okay, so again, be careful of the word wheel. I find it easier to show you how useful it is by the way it appears in print. This is what it looks like, one of the multi-volumes in this particular set of words and phrases. Let's say you wanted to look up the term retaliatory discharge. Well, it would appear in this general range from resist to return. RETALIA, retaliatory, would appear within that alphabetical range, right? Here's what they give you under retaliatory discharge. They give you definitions and cases that define it from the Northern District of Illinois in 1989, from the Supreme Court of Alabama in 97, from the First Appellate District in Illinois in 2004, and the Second Appellate District in Illinois in 1993. So that's an example of how it appears and what it appears in the different cases. They will even give you topic and key numbers. Let's say this first definition of the Northern District of Illinois in 1989 under retaliatory discharge. They give you topic and key numbers, in this case, labor and EMP 771, 851. Those are topic and key numbers that further fuel for your research, where you can actually research under those topic and key numbers for more cases. That's how it appears in print. Of course, in print, you need to update it, and it's not automatically updated as it would be in a database, right? Here, you would have to look in the back of that volume, volume 37A in this case, to update it, because this stuff may be from 2007, which is fine, but if you want to find the most recent cases that defined it, you look in the back under the pocket part. This is kind of older. This is from 2012. The super updated pocket part, it was the cumulative annual pocket part governing opinions 2004 to date. So that it'd give you definitions from 2004 to 2012 for terms ranging from resist to return. And that's how you would use a cumulative updated pocket part. So in this screencast 2, we covered dictionaries and legal thesauri. Up next in screencast 3, we'll cover legal encyclopedias. Stay tuned.